What if walking away without a single word was the loudest thing you could ever do? No drama, no shouting, no explanations, just space, silence, absence. And yet, in that quiet act, you trigger something far louder, an earthquake inside the people you leave behind. We've been taught that leaving must be explosive to matter, that a person only feels your absence if it comes with a bang. But here's the truth. Sometimes the most shattering move is to slip away without a trace. Not because you hate them, not because they hurt you, but because you need to return to yourself. You don't disappear, you disconnect. You drop the invisible strings that tied you to others. Strings made of expectations, of emotional weight, of unspoken roles you were never supposed to carry. And when those strings snap, everything shifts. It's not your presence they miss. It's not even your voice or your kindness. What unsettles them is that they no longer have access to the reflection you once gave them. You were their mirror, a place where they could hide from their insecurities, project their fears, mask their confusion. But now that mirror is gone, and they're left staring into a version of themselves they never wanted to face. And that's terrifying. You see, people rarely relate to who you are. They relate to who they need you to be. Maybe you were the fixer, the stable one, the emotional support system, the unspoken therapist. And you didn't sign up for that, did you? So when you step away, it's not just absence, they experience a collapse, a subtle unraveling of the emotional ecosystem that relied on your presence to function. They start to feel a void, but not for the reasons they claim. It's not, "I miss you." It's, "I don't know who I am without the version of me that existed next to you." And that's where the discomfort begins. Not because they love you so deeply, but because they depended on you in ways even they didn't realize. Here's the part that nobody talks about. Your presence was doing emotional labor you never agreed to. And the moment you step back, you force others to carry what they've always placed on your shoulders. You weren't just a person, you were their balance, their compass, their distraction from the work they never did within themselves. And now, they're exposed. Not to others, to themselves. This chapter isn't about blame, it's about clarity. The clarity that arises when you realize your absence doesn't just leave a space in someone's life, it reveals things they were trying not to see. And the most haunting realization, the pain they feel isn't about you. It's about what they see when you're no longer there to reflect it back gently. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when they try to rebuild that reflection without you, how they twist, distort, and reshape your image just to make sense of why you left. Because when someone like you walks away, people don't seek truth, they seek justification. What does someone do with a void they can't explain? They try to fill it, not with truth, but with stories, assumptions, narratives that make their pain more digestible. And when you leave, that's exactly what happens. You stop being a person and become a character in a story they write to soothe themselves. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The story is never about you. It's about them. They can't ask why you left. Not really, because that question would require them to look at their own behaviors, their own emotional dependence, their own silence when you needed to be seen. So instead, they begin reconstructing a version of you that makes your absence easier to carry. Some will idealize you. You were perfect, and I lost you. That narrative paints them as the victim of their own blindness. It's romantic, almost poetic, but still it avoids responsibility. Others will demonize you. You walked away because you never cared. You were selfish. That story is far more convenient because it removes all shame. It transforms their pain into justified anger. Easier to be mad than introspective. And a rare few? They'll sit with the discomfort. They'll ask, was I listening? Did I take more than I gave? These are the brave ones. But they are few and far between. What's fascinating is how your absence doesn't remain static in their minds. It evolves, morphs. They revisit memories and distort them intentionally or not. Moments where you were silent become signs of your coldness. Moments where you showed love become exaggerated proof of their loss. They rewrite the past to make sense of a present that doesn't feel whole anymore. And that's the part that should give you pause. They never really knew you. They only knew what they projected onto you. You were their safety net, their emotional placeholder, their background character in a movie where they were the lead. When you disappear, the movie doesn't end. It just becomes harder to watch. You didn't just walk away from people, you walked away from roles. Roles you never auditioned for, but played so well that others forgot you were acting. And now, with the stage empty, they scramble to recast your part in their lives with memory, resentment, longing anything that will restore the script. And what hurts the most? They don't miss you. They miss the way you made them feel about themselves. But here's the beautiful irony. In your absence, they begin a process they never intended, a confrontation with the self. Not everyone will survive that encounter gracefully, but some just might grow. In Chapter 3, we'll walk through the deeper emotional unraveling that happens over time. Because absence is not just a moment, it's a ripple. And eventually, those ripples reach places they've tried to bury for years. Time doesn't heal all wounds. Sometimes, it reveals the ones we pretended weren't there. In the beginning, your absence feels temporary to them, a phase, a moment, something they believe will pass if they wait long enough, stay quiet enough, or guilt you into returning. But as the days stretch into weeks, and the silence deepens, something more unsettling begins to occur, not around them, but within them. The unraveling begins. At first, it's subtle. They check their phone a little more often. They replay conversations in their mind. They tell themselves, "You're just busy." But slowly, a question starts creeping in. What if you're not coming back? And that question, it isn't just about you. It's about them, about their identity, their emotional architecture, their self-worth. Because here's what they never considered. You weren't just part of their life. You were part of how they understood themselves. You held space. You absorbed emotion. You made their chaos feel manageable. And now, that buffer is gone. They're left alone with thoughts that used to be softened by your presence. Fears that were buried now have room to breathe. Wounds that were disguised as closeness are exposed. And what's most painful isn't your disappearance. It's that your absence has disrupted their illusion of emotional self-sufficiency. Because many of the people you walked away from, they weren't dependent on your love. They were dependent on your ability to keep their inner world stable while they refused to do the work themselves. Now that you're gone, they start to see the truth. They had built their emotional equilibrium on someone else's energy. And without that, the structure cracks. The patterns collapse. The mask begins to slip. This is when the emotional chaos begins to surface. Some get angry at you, at themselves, at the world. Some spiral into self-blame, wondering what they did wrong. Some numb themselves with distraction, pretending your absence means nothing while their body tells a different story. Restlessness, sleepless nights, sudden tears. But the most honest of them, they confront the terrifying question, who am I without you? And it's not a romantic question. It's a raw, existential one, because your presence, your energy, was part of how they avoided this very reckoning. Now, the mirror is no longer yours. It's theirs. And they don't like what they see. This is the breaking point in many relationships, not when you leave, but when they realize you're not coming back to rescue them from themselves. When you walk away, you don't just leave them behind, you take their sense of control with you. And for many, that's the true trauma. Because let's face it, people aren't always upset because you're gone. They're upset because you left before they could decide what that meant. Your absence introduces something they can't tolerate: unpredictability. Suddenly, they don't know who they are in your absence. They don't know what story to tell. And worst of all, they don't know how to make sense of your silence. And silence, for the emotionally dependent, is a vacuum that screams. So what do? They try to regain control. Not over you, but over the narrative. They begin to create stories to patch the hole your exit left behind. Some rationalize. She just needed space. He'll come around eventually. Others lash out. She never cared. He ghosted me because he's a coward. But none of these stories are about finding truth. They're about survival. Because when someone's emotional stability was built around you always being there, your withdrawal isn't just confusing, it's destabilizing. Suddenly, they're left with too many open loops. Did they push too hard? Were they too needy? Why didn't they notice the signs? And that's where the panic begins. Because your absence isn't neat. It's not wrapped in explanation. It doesn't give them the closure they crave. So they start filling in the blanks, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with resentment, always with fear. You see, when you were present, they could avoid asking deeper questions. Your presence masked the imbalance in the relationship. Your energy filled the emotional silence they didn't know how to sit with. Your patience gave them the illusion that everything was okay. But now, you've disrupted the pattern. And disrupted patterns create chaos. And chaos, for someone who's used to emotional predictability, is unbearable. That's why they scramble. They try to recreate your role through others. They seek out replacements. They copy and paste the dynamic into new relationships, only to find that it never feels quite the same. Because what they really miss is not your personality, or even your love. They miss the structure your presence gave their life. And structure is everything when you're afraid of confronting your own emotional disarray. But here's where the shift happens. Eventually, after the denial, the anger, the confusion, some begin to see it. You weren't the problem. Your decision to leave wasn't a betrayal. It was a mirror. And what they see in that mirror, unfiltered, unromanticized, is a version of themselves they don't fully recognize. What if the most powerful way to help someone grow is by no longer standing in their way? It doesn't feel like that at first. When you step back, when you say nothing, when you choose silence over explanation, the immediate reaction is guilt, doubt, pain. You wonder if you were too harsh, if walking away made you the villain, if leaving hurt them more than staying would have. But with time, something surprising begins to unfold. Not in you, but in them, because distance is a strange teacher. It's uncomfortable, uninvited, but unforgettable. And it has a way of revealing truths no conversation ever could. Your absence becomes a mirror they can't cover up. It forces them to sit with their discomfort, to question their dependence, to finally confront the emotional blind spots they denied while you were near. And some, not all, but some will rise. Not immediately, not gracefully, but inevitably. They begin to realize that the version of you they constructed was never meant to carry the emotional weight they placed upon it. They start to see that needing someone and loving someone are not the same. That leaning on another person without ever standing on your own is not connection, it's avoidance. And here's the twist. Your absence doesn't only reveal them to themselves, it reveals you to you. Because walking away isn't easy. It's not cowardice. It's not detachment. It's courage. It's the ability to choose yourself in a world that constantly tells you to sacrifice for others. It's the decision to reclaim your energy, your boundaries, your inner peace, even if others misinterpret it. You realize that so much of your identity was shaped by holding space for others, fixing, soothing, being the emotional backbone of every collapsing structure. And when you let that go, you don't just lose relationships. You lose the illusion that you are only valuable when needed. That's where freedom begins. That's where selfhood is reborn. And for those you've left behind, they're now faced with the most important question of all. Who am I, now that you're no longer here to define me? Some will avoid it. Some will numb it. Some will never forgive you for forcing them to ask it. But a few, just a few, will find clarity. They'll begin the work. They'll discover their own strength. And one day, they may even thank you not out loud, but in their own quiet journey of becoming. That's the paradox of leaving. You become the catalyst for change you were never allowed to be while you stayed. So if you've ever walked away and questioned whether it was the right thing, or if someone has left you and you're still struggling to understand why, know this: the absence does not define you. It reveals you, it frees you, and sometimes it heals everyone involved, just not in the way anyone expected. You were never meant to be anyone's emotional scaffolding. You were meant to be whole. And by choosing wholeness, You gave others a chance to build themselves, perhaps for the very first time.